Captain Hean stood on the bridge of his trading vessel, staring at the empty docking bay through the view screen. Something was wrong. Very wrong. The Outer Rim trading hub should have been busy at this hour. Human workers should have been moving cargo containers, checking manifests, and greeting incoming ships. Instead, the massive station was silent. He tried the communication channel again. "This is the Prosperity Dawn, requesting docking clearance. Is anyone there?" Only static answered him. Hean felt a cold, not forming in his stomach. In 15 years of trading runs, the humans had never failed to respond. They were always there, always reliable, always working. The automated docking system activated, and his ship settled into Bay 17. Hean grabbed his data pad and headed down to the cargo deck. His crew followed, their expressions uncertain. When the airlock opened, they stepped into an empty station. The lights were on. The air systems hummed quietly. Everything looked normal except for one impossible detail. There were no humans anywhere. Heon walked through the human quarter of the station. Cups of coffee sat on tables, still half full. Computer screens displayed unfinished reports. A child's toy lay abandoned in a corridor. It looked like everyone had simply stopped what they were doing and left. But there were no signs of panic, no evidence of an emergency. The humans had just vanished. Across the galaxy, similar discoveries were happening. Station commanders found human sections empty. Military officers realized their human advisors had not reported for duty. Diplomats arrived at embassies to find the buildings locked and dark. Within hours, reports flooded into the Galactic Council headquarters on Prima Station. Admiral Taiyang received the news while reviewing patrol reports in his office. His assistant, a young Vrin officer, entered with a troubled expression. "Sir, we have a problem. The human fleet is gone." Taiyang looked up sharply. "Gone? What do you mean gone?" "Every human vessel has left their assigned positions. The border patrol ships, the diplomatic escorts, the cargo runners, all of them departed sometime in the last 72 hours. No one noticed until now because they left automated beacons transmitting normal status reports." The Admiral felt something close to fear. He had fought beside human commanders during the Crimson Nebula War. They had saved his life more than once. They were friends, or so he thought. He checked his personal messages and found one from Commander Day, time-stamped 3 days earlier. It was short. "It's been an honor serving with you, Taiyang. Take care of yourself and your people. We won't be in contact again." Taiyang read the message 3 times, trying to understand. It sounded like a goodbye, but why? He sent a reply immediately. Then another. Then 10 more. None of them received a response. The communication channels to human ships showed as active but unattended. The Galactic Council president, a towering Keltharian named Vrex, called an emergency session. Representatives from 70 species gathered in the Great Chamber, their voices rising in confusion and concern. Vrex stood at the central podium, his forearms spread wide for silence. "We have confirmed reports from every sector," Vrex announced, his deep voice echoing through the chamber. "Humanity has withdrawn from all galactic activities. Every human colony world is empty. Every station they've managed has been abandoned. Every ship they operated has disappeared. We have no explanation for this exodus." The chamber erupted in questions. A Keltharian senator demanded to know if this was an act of war. A Vrin diplomat suggested the humans might have been abducted by an unknown force. A small delegation from the Threll Collective wondered if humanity had discovered some threat they had not shared. Hune sat in the public gallery, listening to the chaos below. He thought about the human workers he had known for years. Bora, who always had a joke ready when ships came in late. Quan, who could fix any cargo loader in under an hour. Yunji, who taught the station's children from a dozen different species. They had been part of the community, part of daily life. Now they were gone, and no one seemed to know why. The council appointed investigation teams. Military units were dispatched to human colony worlds. Diplomats tried every communication channel they could think of. Scientists analyzed the departure patterns, looking for clues. The galaxy's best minds turned their attention to solving the mystery of humanity's disappearance. What they found only deepened the confusion. On Earth, The human homeworld, cities stood pristine and empty. Buildings were intact, power systems running, even the parks and gardens maintained by automated systems. There was no damage, no signs of struggle, no indication of disaster. The humans had simply chosen to leave. Admiral Taiyang led a military investigation team to the last known position of the human fleet. They found nothing but empty space and the faint traces of engine signatures heading toward the galactic rim. The trails were already days old and fading fast. Whatever ships the humans had used, they were fast and efficient. Back on Prima Station, Consular Minji tried to access human administrative systems. She had worked with human economists for decades, learning their methods and systems. But when she tried to log into the trade management networks, she found them locked. Not destroyed, not damaged. Just secured with authorization codes that only humans possessed. She spent hours trying different approaches, calling in technical experts from 4 different species. Nothing worked. The systems were still running, still processing data, but without human access codes, they were useless. It was like the humans had left them a gift they could not open. As the first week passed, the initial confusion gave way to worry. The humans had been part of galactic society for 200 years. They had integrated into every aspect of civilization. They ran trade routes, maintained infrastructure, served in militaries, taught in universities, and worked in hospitals. Their sudden absence left holes in countless systems. Huan returned to his ship and continued his trading route. But nothing felt the same. At every station, there were jobs that humans used to do that now went undone. Simple things like cargo manifests being filed correctly or maintenance schedules being updated. Small inefficiencies that people had never noticed, because humans had always handled them. The galaxy was beginning to realize something troubling. Humanity had not just been present in their civilization, they had been essential. And now they were gone, leaving behind only silence and 1,000 unanswered questions. In the council chambers, in military headquarters, in trading stations across known space, people were starting to ask the same thing. What happens now? The first supply ship arrived at Keshin Prime 3 weeks late. The colony world, home to 4 million Vrin settlers, had been expecting food shipments, medical supplies, and construction materials. Instead, the cargo vessel delivered machine parts meant for a mining station 6 systems away. The ship's captain, confused and apologetic, explained that the automated routing system had given him the wrong destination across the galaxy. Similar mistakes were happening. Ships arrived at wrong stations. Cargo manifests did not match actual deliveries. Critical supplies went to worlds that did not need them, while desperate colonies waited for help that never came. The Galactic Trade Network, which had run smoothly for decades, was falling apart. Minji stood before the council, her hands shaking as she tried to explain what was happening. She had spent weeks analyzing the human trade systems, and what she discovered terrified her. The humans were managing 17,000 separate variables simultaneously, she said. Crop production rates, manufacturing schedules, fuel consumption, population growth, seasonal variations, and hundreds of other factors. They had built a system so complex that no one else understood how it worked. The Keltharian senator interrupted her. Surely we have other economists who can manage trade routes. Minji shook her head. We have economists who can manage individual routes or sectors. The humans were managing everything at once. They saw the entire galaxy as one connected system. Every decision they made considered effects across dozens of worlds. We do not have anyone who can do that. The council chamber fell silent. They were beginning to understand the scale of the problem. For 2 centuries, they had assumed the trade network ran itself with some human assistance. Now they realized the truth. The humans had been the system, and without them, everything was breaking down. The medical crisis emerged more slowly, but with devastating effect. Dr. Hagen, chief physician at a Vrin medical complex, noticed it first when treating a patient with a cross-species infection. These cases were rare but not uncommon in a galaxy where multiple species lived and worked together. The standard treatment was to use the adaptive medical AI that humans had developed. He activated the system and entered the patient's information. The screen flashed red. Authorization required. Human medical officer's signature needed. Hagen stared at the message in disbelief. He tried emergency override codes. He called in senior technicians. Nothing worked. The system would not function without human authentication. His patient died 2 days later. Then another. Then 5 more. Medical facilities across the galaxy reported the same problem. The advanced treatments that humanity had pioneered were locked behind security systems that no one could bypass. Doctors and nurses did their best with older methods, but people were dying who should not have died. Technician Yuna discovered an even bigger problem. She worked at a water purification facility on a colony world called New Threshold. The facility served 2 million people and had run perfectly for 40 years. Then the primary filtration system began shutting down. Yuna checked the maintenance logs and found that a human engineer named Quan had been performing adjustments every 6 months. Small calibrations, minor fixes, routine updates to the software. Nothing that seemed important, except now, without those adjustments, the system was failing. Yuna tried to replicate what Quan had done, but the control interface was written in a hybrid code that mixed 3 different programming languages. She spent days trying to understand it, calling in experts, searching through documentation. They managed to keep the system running, but barely. Reports came in from across the galaxy. Power grids needed human maintenance. Atmospheric processors on dome colonies required human oversight. Communication relays depended on human-designed routing protocols. The humans had quietly woven themselves into the infrastructure of galactic civilization, and their absence was causing everything to decay. Fleet Commander Wujin faced a different crisis. He commanded a battle group tasked with protecting the Outer Rim from pirates and raiders. His fleet had always included human tactical officers who coordinated with other species' ships. They made the fleet work as a unified force, translating between different military traditions and communication styles. Now those officers were gone. Coordination had become nearly impossible. Varin ships used one tactical system. Keltharian vessels used another. The smaller species each had their own protocols. Without humans to bridge the gaps, the fleet could barely operate as a cohesive unit. In 3 separate engagements with pirates, Wujin's forces had suffered casualties due to simple miscommunication. Worse still was the strategic situation. The Kethros Dominion, humanity's old rival, had noticed the chaos. Their probe ships appeared in border zones, testing defenses and mapping weak points. The Kethros had always respected the peace agreements, mostly because they feared human military capabilities. Now, with humans gone, they were growing bold. Wujin sent urgent reports to military command. The galaxy needed to reorganize its defenses, needed to adapt to humanity's absence. But adaptation took time, and the Kethros were not waiting. Border incidents increased. Small colonies reported Kethros ships in their space. Tensions were rising toward open conflict. Back on Prima Station, the Council struggled to respond to cascading crises. Food shortages on 12 worlds, medical emergencies on 40 more, infrastructure failures affecting millions, military threats on the borders. Every problem seemed connected, and none of them had easy solutions. He watched it all from his trading ship, continuing his routes but seeing the decay everywhere he went. Stations that used to be clean and efficient were now cluttered and disorganized. Shipments that used to arrive on time were delayed or lost. People who used to be confident and secure were now worried and afraid. He remembered Bora, the human cargo handler who had worked his usual station. She had always known exactly where everything was, exactly when ships would arrive, exactly how to solve any problem. She made it look easy, made it seem like the job was simple. Now, he realized it had never been simple. She had just been that good at her work. The galaxy was unraveling, and everyone could feel it. The systems that had seemed permanent and reliable were showing their fragility. Trade networks stumbled. Medical systems failed. Infrastructure crumbled. Military defenses weakened. And everywhere, in every sector, on every world, people were beginning to ask the same desperate question. How do we fix this without the humans? Mingy stood in her office late one night, surrounded by data screens showing trade routes and chaos. She had studied human economics for 30 years, had learned from the best human professors, had thought she understood their methods. Now she realized she had only seen the surface. The humans had been working at a level of complexity and coordination that no one else had fully appreciated. She pulled up a message that a human economist had sent her years ago. It contained a simple warning. The galaxy's systems are more fragile than they appear. They require constant attention and care. If we ever stopped maintaining them, things would fall apart quickly. At the time, Minji had thought it was just professional caution. Now she understood it was a prediction. The humans had known this would happen, and they had left anyway. Ambassador Giwan accepted the assignment without hesitation. The council needed someone to lead the search for humanity, and she was the obvious choice. She had worked with humans for 40 years, had built relationships with their diplomats, had learned their language and customs. If anyone could find them and convince them to return, it was her. She assembled a team of specialists, scientists, engineers, linguists, and military advisors. All of them had worked closely with humans. All of them understood the crisis facing the galaxy. Their mission was simple in concept, but difficult in execution. Find humanity, learn why they left, and convince them to come back. The investigation began on Earth. Jiwan's ship entered orbit around the human homeworld, and she looked down at the planet that had given birth to the species that had changed the galaxy. From space, everything looked normal. Cities glowed with lights. Agricultural zones showed green and healthy. Weather control systems maintained optimal conditions. When the landing party touched down in what had been the capital city, they found a place frozen in time. The streets were clean and empty. Buildings stood intact and well-maintained. In the central plaza, automated systems watered gardens and trimmed hedges. It was beautiful and deeply unsettling. Guan walked through government buildings, museums, and cultural centers. Everywhere she looked, she saw evidence of careful preparation. Libraries had been left fully stocked with books and data files. Medical facilities contained complete inventories of supplies and equipment. Even military installations had been left with their basic systems functional. Engineer Sunho, part of Jiwan's team, made a discovery in the main computer center. They left everything running on purpose, he reported. Power generation, water systems, environmental controls. Everything is set to maintain itself indefinitely. They could come back tomorrow, and everything would work. But that raised a troubling question. If the humans planned to come back, why leave without warning? And if they did not plan to return, why maintain everything so carefully? Giwan found a partial answer in the cultural archives. A message had been embedded in the digital infrastructure, hidden where only someone looking carefully would find it. Sunho decoded it and displayed the text on a screen. It read, "We gave you everything we could. We taught you everything we knew. But you never learned the most important lesson." The message offered no explanation of what that lesson was. It simply ended there, leaving Jiwan frustrated and confused. She ordered her team to search deeper, to find more clues about humanity's intentions and destination. The investigation expanded across dozens of human colony worlds. Each one told the same story: organized departure, careful maintenance, no signs of emergency or panic. The humans had left like people going on a planned trip, not like refugees fleeing a disaster. On a colony world called Haven's Rest, Kwan's team found something unexpected. A shipyard, massive and sophisticated, hidden in a deep canyon. The construction bays were empty now, but analysis of the residual energy signatures suggested they had been used recently. Very recently, Sunho examined the facilities with growing amazement. "This technology is decades beyond what humans showed us," he said. "These ships would be faster, more efficient, and more powerful than anything in the galactic fleet. They have been developing this in secret for years." Giwan felt a chill run through her. The implications were clear. Humanity had not left on impulse. This had been planned carefully over decades, perhaps longer. They had built ships, organized logistics, coordinated a departure involving billions of people across hundreds of worlds, all without anyone in the galaxy noticing. The search teams found similar hidden facilities on other worlds. Shipyards, supply depots, manufacturing centers, all empty now, all deactivated, but all proof of a massive undertaking. Humanity had built a shadow infrastructure right under everyone's noses. The trail led toward the galactic rim, toward the darkest and least explored regions of space. Long-range sensors detected faint engine signatures heading into an area called the Dark Meridian. It was a region of space that most species avoided. Unstable gravitational fields, intense radiation, spatial anomalies that made navigation nearly impossible. No galactic expedition had ever successfully explored the Dark Meridian. Ships that went in rarely came out, and those that did reported systems failures and damage from unknown sources. It was considered a dead zone, worthless and dangerous. But the humans had gone there. The evidence was unmistakable. Their ships had entered the Dark Meridian and disappeared into the cosmic chaos. G1 held a meeting with her team to discuss their next move. "We can follow them," she said. "Our ships are equipped with the best shields and navigation systems the galaxy can build. We might be able to penetrate the Dark Meridian far enough to pick up their trail." Several team members objected. The risk was enormous. Ships could be destroyed or lost forever in those unstable regions. But G1 was determined. The galaxy was falling apart, and humanity was the only hope of stopping the collapse. They had to try. Before launching the deep space search, G1 returned to Prima Station to report her findings to the Council. She stood before the assembled representatives and delivered the truth they did not want to hear. "Humanity did not leave because of an emergency," she said. "They left by choice. They planned this exodus for decades, built ships we never knew existed, and coordinated a departure involving every human in known space. They went to the Dark Meridian deliberately, knowing we would have extreme difficulty following them." A Keltharian senator demanded to know why. What reason could they have for abandoning the civilization they helped build? Giwan had been asking herself the same question. She thought about the message found on Earth. "You never learn the most important lesson." What lesson? What had the galaxy failed to understand? She thought about her years working with humans. They had always been competent, reliable, and helpful. They worked hard, solved problems, and asked for little in return. They had integrated into galactic society so smoothly that people had stopped thinking about them as remarkable. They had just been there, part of the background, essential, but somehow invisible. "I think," Guan said slowly, "they left because we failed them somehow. We did something wrong or failed to do something right. The message they left suggests we were supposed to learn something from them, and we did not." The Council authorized the deep space mission. Giwan was given the best ship available, equipped with advanced sensors and shields. A crew of volunteers from multiple species joined her. I love them. Determined to find humanity and bring them home. As the ship prepared to depart, Hewan came to see Giwan off. The traitor had become a friend during the investigation. "Do you think you will find them?" he asked. Geo-1 looked out at the stars, toward the dark regions where humanity had vanished. "I have to believe we will," she said. "The galaxy needs them. We cannot survive without them." But even as she said it, G1 wondered if survival was enough reason to bring the humans back. If they had chosen to leave, if they had planned and prepared for decades to escape, then perhaps they had good reasons. Perhaps the galaxy did not deserve to have them return. The ship launched, heading toward the Dark Meridian and the answers that waited in the darkness. Behind them, the galaxy continued to unravel, systems failing one by one, a carefully balanced civilization that humans had helped maintain falling slowly into chaos. While Wall's expedition prepared to enter the Dark Meridian, Counselor Soman began her own investigation. She was a historian who specialized in human culture, and something about this situation troubled her deeply. Entire civilizations did not just leave without reason. There had to be a cause, a pattern, something that explained humanity's departure. She started by reviewing 200 years of human-galactic relations, reading diplomatic reports, cultural exchanges, and historical records. The first few decades were encouraging. When humans joined galactic society, they were welcomed with curiosity and respect. Their technology was studied, their ideas were discussed, their contributions were acknowledged. But then something changed. It happened gradually, so slowly that no one noticed it happening. Humans went from being interesting newcomers to being ordinary members of society. Their presence became expected rather than appreciated. They were just there, part of the background. Solomon found the pattern in the details. When humans proposed solutions to galactic problems, the ideas were initially praised. But in official reports and historical records, credit was given to alien advisors who implemented the plans. The human originators were mentioned briefly or not at all. When humans made breakthroughs in science, their names appeared on research papers as junior contributors, even when they had done most of the work. Senior alien scientists received the recognition and awards. It happened so consistently that Solomon realized it could not be accidental. She brought her findings to a colleague, a scientist named Inho. He listened with growing discomfort as she described the pattern. Then she asked him to review his own publications from the past 20 years. Inho had worked with human researchers on several major projects. He spent 3 days going through his papers. When he returned to Summon's office, he looked ill. "You are right," he said quietly. "I listed human contributors at the end, after all the alien researchers. I did it without thinking. It seemed normal at the time. Now I realize I was claiming credit for work they had done." Summon expanded her investigation. She examined thousands of scientific papers, hundreds of diplomatic reports, decades of cultural records. The pattern was everywhere. Humans contributed enormous amounts of work, innovation, and effort. They rarely received appropriate recognition for any of it. The most damning evidence came from reviewing Galactic Council proceedings. Salmon found records of human representatives warning about emerging problems, economic instabilities, infrastructure decay, rising tensions with the Kethros. Every single warning had been dismissed or given low priority. Council members acknowledged the concerns, thanked the humans for their diligence, and then proceeded to ignore the advice. Cultural analyst Nari joined the investigation and focused on personal records and private communications between members of various species. What she found was crushing. In diaries, personal logs, and private messages, people across the galaxy expressed similar attitudes toward humans. They were seen as useful, but unremarkable. Hardworking, but not particularly brilliant. Reliable, but not inspiring. Good at managing details, but not capable of true leadership. The words were not hateful or cruel, just casually dismissive. Humans were appreciated in the way someone might appreciate a good appliance, noticed when it broke, taken for granted when it worked. Nair, I found entries in her own journals that made her feel ashamed. She had written about human colleagues with casual indifference, describing them as competent enough and easy to work with, but never acknowledging their actual talents or contributions. She had treated them as furniture, useful objects rather than equals. Solomon presented her findings to the council in a formal session. The chamber was packed with representatives eager to understand why humanity had left. She stood at the central podium and delivered the truth they needed to hear. "For 2 centuries we have taken humanity for granted," she began. "We welcomed them into galactic society, and they gave us everything they had. They shared their technology, their knowledge, their labor, and their creativity. In return, we gave them basic respect and nothing more." She displayed data on screens around the chamber, charts showing human contributions to science, with their names absent from recognition. Records of human warnings about galactic problems ignored by decision-makers. Statistics showing that humans occupied essential positions throughout civilization, but were almost never promoted to leadership roles. "Humans built the infrastructure we depend on," Solomon continued. "They managed the systems that keep our civilization functioning. They solved problems we did not even know we had, and we never truly appreciated any of it. We treated them as skilled servants rather than valued partners." A Vrin senator stood to object. "We thanked them for their contributions. We paid them fairly. We included them in our society." Solomon nodded. "Yes, we did all of those things. but we never saw them as equals. We never celebrated their achievements. We never gave them the recognition they deserved. We took their competence for granted and assumed they would always be there, always helping, always working in the background. She pulled up personal logs from her own people, from Vryn officials, from Keltharian leaders. The casual dismissiveness was evident in every entry. Humans were described as useful, reliable, and unremarkable. Never brilliant, never inspiring, never truly valued. G1. Watching the presentation from her ship felt her heart sink. She thought about her own relationships with human colleagues. She had considered herself a friend to humanity, had worked closely with their diplomats, had learned their culture. But had she ever really seen them as equals? Or had she, like everyone else, treated them as competent assistants rather than true partners? Admiral Tai Yang reviewed his own records and found the same pattern. He had fought beside human commanders, had relied on their tactical expertise, had trusted them with his life, but in his official reports, he described victories as results of Vryn military skill, mentioning human contributions only briefly. He had done it unconsciously, automatically giving more credit to his own species. Captain Heon sat in his ship and thought about Bora, Quan, and Yunji. He had worked with them for years, had shared meals and stories, had considered them friends. But he could not remember ever asking about their ambitions or dreams. He had never wondered if they were satisfied with their work, if they felt valued, if they hoped for something more. He had simply assumed they were content because they'd never complained. The painful realization spread across the galaxy. People reviewed their own interactions with humans and found the same pattern everywhere. Casual dismissiveness, unconscious disrespect, automatic assumptions of inferiority. Not hatred, not cruelty. Just an endless background hum of being undervalued and overlooked. Salman found one final piece of evidence that brought the entire picture into focus. In a human cultural archive on Earth, she discovered personal journals left behind by humans who had worked in various galactic institutions. The entries were heartbreaking, one human engineer wrote. I solved the power distribution problem that the team had struggled with for months. The senior engineer presented my solution to the council and received a commendation. My name was not mentioned. This happens every time, human scientists recorded. My research formed the foundation for the breakthrough everyone is celebrating. In the official announcement, I am listed as a lab assistant. No one seemed to think this was wrong, a human diplomat noted. I warned them again about the Kethros border situation. They smiled, thanked me for my diligence, and then talked about more important matters. They do not understand that I am trying to prevent a war. The journal entries went on for pages. Hundreds of humans describing the same experience, working hard, contributing significantly, and being systematically overlooked. Not actively discriminated against, just quietly made invisible. Salman found one entry that summarized everything. A human teacher who worked at a multi-species school wrote, I do not think they hate us. I think something worse has happened. They have stopped seeing us at all. We are invisible to them, even when we are standing right in front of them. We give our best effort, and they barely notice we exist. The message ended with a line that made Summon's hands shake. I think we need to leave. Not because they are cruel, but because we deserve to be seen. She presented this final evidence to the council. The chamber fell silent as the representatives absorbed the truth. The galaxy had not driven humanity away with persecution or hatred. They had done something worse. They had made humans feel unnecessary, unappreciated, and invisible, despite being essential to civilization. The lesson humanity wanted them to learn was painfully simple. Everyone deserves to be seen, valued, and respected for their contributions. The galaxy had failed that basic test of decent treatment, and humanity had decided they would rather be alone than surrounded by people who looked through them as if they were not there. 6 months after humanity's departure, the galaxy was barely recognizable. The Kethros Dominion controlled 20 former council systems, their forces encountering minimal resistance from the disorganized galactic military. Economic collapse had triggered famines on 40 worlds. Infrastructure failures affected billions. The careful civilization that had flourished for centuries was tearing itself apart. Guan's ship finally penetrated deep into the dark meridian. The journey had been brutal. Spatial anomalies damaged their shields. Radiation storms forced them to shelter behind planetary bodies. Navigation systems failed repeatedly, forcing the crew to plot courses manually. 3 times they nearly turned back, but Jawan pushed them forward. Then, impossibly, they found it. Hidden within a massive nebula, protected by gravitational fields and energy barriers that should not exist with current technology, was a structure that defied description. It was not a station or a planet. It was something between both, a construct the size of a small moon, glowing with power. Containing billions of human life signs, Guan sent a hailing signal, not expecting a response. The humans had ignored every attempt at communication for 6 months. But this time, after a long delay, a transmission came through. A face appeared on the screen. Commander Day, older than Jiwan remembered, but still strong and alert. Ambassador Jiwan Day said, his voice neutral. We have been expecting someone would eventually find us. I am surprised it took this long. Giwan felt relief flood through her. They had made contact. There was still hope. Commander Day, thank you for responding. The galaxy needs to talk with you. We need to understand what happened and how we can make things right. Day's expression did not change. You want us to come back and fix the problems our absence created. We know. We have been monitoring your communications. We are aware of the economic collapse, the infrastructure failures, and the Kethro's expansion. Then you understand how desperate the situation is, Guan said. People are suffering. Worlds are struggling. The peace you helped build is falling apart. We need your help. Day nodded slowly. You are describing what happens when you lose a servant, not a partner. Your words confirm everything we believed about how the galaxy saw us. Juan felt the accusation like a physical blow. We know we made mistakes. Counselor Soman has documented everything. We understand now that we failed to properly value your contributions. We took you for granted, treated you as invisible, denied you the recognition you deserved. We are ashamed of how we behaved. Are you? Day asked. Or are you ashamed because you are suffering consequences? Would you be having this conversation if your systems were still functioning smoothly? The question hung in the air. Giwan wanted to say yes, wanted to claim they would have recognized their mistakes without the crisis. But she could not lie to him. Probably not, she admitted. We did not see the problem until you were gone. That is part of what we did wrong. Day seemed to appreciate her honesty. At least you are being truthful. That is more than we usually received. Jioan gathered her courage and made the plea she had traveled across the galaxy to deliver. We understand why you left. We know we failed you. But please consider coming back. Not for us, but for the billions of innocent people who are suffering. They were not the ones who dismissed you or overlooked your contributions. Many of them valued you deeply. Did they? Day asked. Or did they simply not think about us at all? We read the personal journals and communications that Salman analyzed. The casual dismissiveness was not limited to leaders or politicians. It was everywhere, from everyone. Even people who considered themselves our friends treated us as useful tools rather than equals. Guan could not deny it. She thought about her own behavior, her own assumptions. You are right. We all failed you. But people can learn. We are learning now. The galaxy is changing because of your absence. People are treating each other with more respect, more consideration. Your departure taught us the lesson you wanted us to learn. Day shook his head. You are learning to value each other. That is good, but you are not learning to value us. You want us to return and fix your problems, and then what? 20 years from now, once the crisis is past, we will fade into the background again. We will become invisible servants once more. We have lived that story before. It will be different this time, Giwan insisted. We will give you recognition, positions of leadership, real authority. We will make sure everyone knows what you contributed. We will change how galactic society functions. You will give us those things, Day repeated. Do you hear yourself? You are still treating us as subordinates who need to be given things by superior authorities. You still do not see us as equals. The words hit Jiwan like a physical impact. He was right. Even in her apology, even in her plea, she was positioning the galaxy as the authority and humanity as the recipients of benefits. The fundamental assumption of inequality was still there, embedded in every word she spoke. "What do you want from us?" she asked desperately. "Tell me what we need to do to make this right." Day was quiet for a long moment. "We want nothing from you. That is the point you are not understanding. We do not need the galaxy anymore. We built this place ourselves, with our own labor and our own resources. We are self-sufficient here. We do not need your technology, your trade networks, or your approval. But you are alone out here," Juan said. "Isolated from civilization. Is that really better than being part of galactic society?" "Yes," they said simply. "It is better. We would rather face the unknown alone than remain unappreciated among supposed friends. Here, when we build something, we know who built it. When we solve a problem, everyone recognizes who solved it. When we contribute, we are seen and valued. That is worth more than all the benefits galactic society offered." Jiwan tried different approaches. She described the suffering in the galaxy, hoping to appeal to human compassion. She offered technology, territory, resources, anything the Council could provide. She promised reforms, constitutional changes, guaranteed positions of authority, and respect. They refused everything. Those are bribes, not genuine respect. "You are trying to purchase our labor and expertise. You still do not understand that we are not for sale, not anymore. Then what about the innocent people?" Jiwan asked. "The children going hungry because supply chains are broken. The patients dying because medical systems are failing. The families separated because the key throws are expanding. They did nothing wrong. They do not deserve to suffer." "No, they do not," they agreed. "And we are sorry for their pain. But we are not responsible for the galaxy's failure to learn how to manage without us. You had 2 centuries to understand how your systems worked. You chose not to learn because you assumed we would always be there to handle the details." Juan felt desperation rising. "Please, there must be something we can do. Some way to convince you to give us another chance." Day's expression softened slightly, showing a hint of the person Juan had known. "You are a good person, Juan. You always.